first place is wide. Well, Tiger Woods had his worst hole ever. Ellen, am I good? welcome to Behind the Line. I'm your host, Alex Dusky. Joining me today is the lovely Ian Nickel. Ian, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me back.
Of course, we're still filling in for Parker. Parker, we miss you. Can't wait to see you back at the show on Saturday. But until then, we have some sports to talk right now. Big 12 happened this weekend. We're going to start off with the Baylor Bears' heartbreaking loss to Texas Tech. The final for that game was 24-23. Tech came back and scored 12 points in the fourth quarter. Ian, what stood out with you, or what stood out to you during that game?
I think just Texas Tech's resilience in that game. They're 2-5 going into the year, or going into this game. Not a whole lot to play for, but they got down early, 20-6, and then they were down 23-12 heading into that third quarter or that fourth quarter. They just kept on playing. They had a really good goal line stand, which had a devastating hit on Charlie Brewer. It's one of the hits of the year, I think.
Baylor started out pretty strong. Early in that game they got that pick six coming for that, but then that the final drive from Tech, that letting 12 points go in the fourth quarter just can't happen, especially and tough way to lose with those game-winning field goals. That's heartbreaking. You watch that and you're like, ooh, you wish it didn't happen. Looking at the conference as a whole, first place is wide open right now. We have Iowa State is in first in the conference. They're 5-1. OSU is here's the drive that I was just talking about, the pick six from Baylor early on in that game, first quarter, to take the lead 6-3 over Texas Tech.
It was a nice looking pass right there, and then here's I think this is part of the game.
This was the drive to get them down the field. Missed tackle there, gets them over the 50, pushes them out of bounds near the 35.
The cool thing about this drive is that it's not a normal Texas Tech drive. It was a 12-play, 79-yard drive. Really, not. Texas Tech is more air raid, and they usually go pretty quick, but just a nice consistent drive right there. Just 12 plays, and they got it done.
Yeah, they definitely got the edge on that one. Back to looking at the conference as a whole. OSU's second. They're 4-1, so it's tied with Iowa State just with the one loss, and OU's behind them 4-2. Obviously, this weekend is Bedlam. We'll talk more about that later. Don't want to get into that right now. Looking at the AP rankings, OSU's 14, Iowa State 17, OU 18, and Texas 22. What are your thoughts looking at the conference right now?
I feel like they're not giving Oklahoma State a lot of credit when it comes to having a pathway to the playoff, because I think it's still there if they continue to win out. Just a couple dominoes need to fall. I think you look at Georgia's out.
Right.
We should jump them. BYU, I don't think their schedule is credible enough for BYU to get favored there. Cincinnati could lose, and then they're done. There's a couple of ways. I mean, Oregon
and Texas A&M's fifth right now, but they had last week postponed and this week's postponed as well. So that's another thing. If these teams who aren't playing games or are playing weaker opponents, we talked about this last week. Is the AP poll really allowing the best teams to rise to the top?
Yeah, and we'll find out. I think next Tuesday is when the college football playoff rankings debut, which that will give us a better feel of where they're at. And if Oklahoma State wins, I think they'll put us in the top 10. I think that having that credible win, if it's a statement win, because that's going to be the statement win, that could propel us to the top 10. And there could be, maybe some hope there.
Especially now that OU is back. They kind of had a rough start to their season, but they're 18th now in the nation, as I said. So definitely a lot is riding on that game. And like I said, we're going to have Chris Becker on later to kind of go in more depth into Bedlam. Looking ahead this weekend at some other Big 12 games, Texas versus Kansas. Should be an easy win for Texas. They would probably move to 5-2 on their season. The game that I'm really interested in is K-State versus Iowa State. K-State started out strong. Then they lost their quarterback. Freshman Will Howard is in. Oklahoma State did beat them. It wasn't a pretty win. They were definitely a tough opponent. Iowa State is a very solid team, very well practiced. Do you think K-State has a chance, or do you think the Cyclones will just beat the Wildcats?
I think Kansas State does have a chance. I think it's one of those things where, because it's a weird year, and then
anything can happen.
I think both teams are similarly set up to where it's going to be closer. Like the spread right now is 11. I'd probably bank toward K-State winning. I think Iowa State's going to win, but I think it's going to be
a closer game. Yes. I agree, for sure. When we come back, we'll be talking more in depth about college sports as a whole, looking at last weekend and up ahead. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Behind the Line. We just spent a couple minutes talking about the Big 12, so now looking at the NCAA across the country. COVID has been an issue in the SEC. Last weekend only 2 SEC games were played. Texas A&M, their game has been delayed again. Like I said earlier, they're currently ranked 5th, and this is their second game delayed. Do you think that should impact their ranking? I know a couple weeks ago we talked about Wisconsin having only played 2 games and still being ranked pretty high. What are your thoughts on that?
I think because they've played enough games out of the year, because they're 6-1, that it'll probably be okay. For a team like Wisconsin or Oregon, if they were to have a game be delayed again,
right,
where they're like 5-0, that probably doesn't bode well for the college football playoff. I mean, they're a good team, but they just haven't played enough games to be considered, like,
especially with Big 10 and Pac-12 both having shortened seasons already compared to Big 12, SEC, ACC. It's a sticky situation, I think, for all those teams. I think we'll know a lot more, like you said, next Tuesday when the college football playoffs comes out. Looking at the Big 10, Indiana, they're undefeated right now, ranked 9th. They have beaten Michigan, Michigan State, and Penn State. They play Ohio State this weekend. What do you think is going to happen there? Do you think the Hoosiers have a chance? The game is in Columbus.
I want to give them a chance. I can't. Ohio State is just too good. They match up with them really good. The talent discrepancy is just far and away Ohio State, and I want Indiana to win. I really do. I think it's a fun
Everyone
story.
Wants to see them.
And look, we want to see like 9-win Indiana.
When was the last time that happened? The Hoosiers always get made fun of for their football team.
I genuinely don't know, but it'd be nice to see them win. I don't think they will. The spread is 20.5.
Do you think it'll be closer than that, or do you think Ohio State's just going to run away with it?
I don't know. It could be in that range. I could see it being a 3-touchdown game.
I'm excited to see it. It's an 11 a.m., so obviously the game will be done before Bedlam happens. So hopefully that'll be a good game. Also in the Big 10, Wisconsin. They are technically undefeated, and they've won, I believe, by 38 points both games, but they have still only played 2 games and are yet ranked 10th. Do you think that they are as good as they should be ranked. You know, this weekend they have Northwestern in Illinois. Northwestern's ranked 19th. If they lose, how far do you think they'll drop?
I think they'll drop about 9 spots to where Northwestern's at. Because the thing is, like, you look at Wisconsin's schedule, Illinois, they stink.
Right.
Michigan, they really stink.
Right.
And now you have a credible opponent in Northwestern who,
This is truly their first opponent of the season.
Yeah. I mean, Northwestern's good. I don't know how good they are, though. You look at their schedule. I mean, they played Purdue last week. Purdue was undefeated. They're pretty good. They beat Maryland, which I think could favor them on a little later. They beat Iowa. They beat Nebraska. 2 teams that are...
Nebraska. I hate to say it. We're not that good.
Iowa's okay.
Right.
They're 2
Iowa beat Minnesota last weekend.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, I think Northwestern has a better shot to get into the playoff. I don't think they will. But compared to Wisconsin, they're 2-0 right now. They finished the season 6-0. I mean, they have to beat Ohio State.
Right. But... I think, this weekend there's a lot riding on that. Do you think that out of all the Big Ten schools, Ohio State is the only reasonable team to make it into the playoffs? Or do you think if Indiana wins out, do you think they'll make it?
I think it has to be Ohio State just because, brand recognition. That's going to be a big problem, because you want your big brands in there. And I think if USC continues to win, we could see a big jump there because they're a national brand. But they haven't been playing super great.
And I think right now, actually, I saw CBS Sports is predicting OSU to play USC in a bowl game if neither of those teams win out or neither of those teams make it to the playoffs. So
I'll take that, honestly. That's a great thing. Honestly, like, I don't want to make the playoff. I really don't. Like, I don't really want to lose to Clemson or Ohio State. I want to win. I want to win the final game of the year. And, you win the Big 12 championship. You get a New Year's Six bowl. I wouldn't mind that, going to the Cotton Bowl. I think that's a good win. That's a good
It's
end of the season.
Definitely an interesting college football season for a lot of teams. Just quick note, Tulsa, first opponent of the year, gave OSU some trouble. They're ranked 25th. First time in 10 years, so congrats to Tulsa Hurricanes. When we come back, we're going to switch over to some pro sports. Don't go away.
Hi everybody, my name is Emily Shuping. I'm your marketing coordinator for the Made in Oklahoma Coalition. I'm coming to you with an amazing opportunity. We are teaming up with the Ocali Media Group at Oklahoma State University. We want to tell your story on the following platforms: streaming, newspaper, and digital. This opportunity will not only allow your story to be told locally, but nationally as well. I am so excited for each of you to join in on this tremendous opportunity. This will not only be good for your business, but it will be good for our great state of Oklahoma. You can be expecting an email from me soon with more details about this opportunity. Local has a name, local has a face, local has a flavor. The Made in Oklahoma Coalition.
Welcome back to Behind the Line. Alex and Ian here, ready to talk about some NFL injury updates. Last weekend, Drew Brees of the Saints, he went down. They have analyzed his injury and diagnosed him with 5 cracked ribs and a collapsed lung.
Yikes.
Jameis Winston came in and they led the team to beat the 49ers. Here is the play that he went out against the 49ers. Just a really tough hit to the rib area. They came out and said that they believe that 2 of the ribs were cracked in 2 weeks ago game against the Buccaneers and Tom Brady, in which they destroyed the Bucs. Drew Brees got up and walked after this, and when they were like 5 cracked ribs and a collapsed lung, I was like, I couldn't do that. The team is optimistic that he could come back 2 to 3 weeks, but it could be longer. If he is out, do you think Jameis Winston can lead the Saints to a win the next couple weeks, or where do you think that puts the team?
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you look at their schedule, they have to play the Falcons twice.
Okay.
They stink.
Mm-hmm.
They have to play my Broncos. They stink. Yeah.
Sorry.
We're injured. We're injured. And then they had the Eagles on the 13th. So that's 4 weeks of games.
Pretty easy schedule then.
And then after that you have the Chiefs, and maybe you could hope Drew Brees comes back then. But this is a good opportunity for Winston to prove that he is a starting quarterback in this league, and I think he truly is, and I think he'll shine in these next couple of games.
Another injury that happened this weekend, Nick Foles of the Bears had a scary last-second injury. Here it is. It's just a hard hit. Nothing out of the ordinary. He just went down on his right side, pretty hard there, and he had to be carted off of the field. It was the last seconds of the game. The Bears were driving down the field. Ultimately, the Vikings did win that game 19-13.
Dang.
Thankfully, it's not as bad as they initially thought. They believe that it's just a combination of a strain and a bruise for his hip, but he is scheduled for more tests today, so they will know more. But did you watch the game? Like, did you see that happen?
That's the first time I've seen that. That's a really weird spot.
It's just a weird area to
Just-
lay down and get
Yeah.
hit on. So hopefully he is okay with that. On a happier note from the NFL, the Hail Mary pass, Kyler Murray threw an amazing 43-yard Hail Mary. Here it is. He throws it to DeAndre Hopkins in the end zone. There's 2 seconds left in the game. I believe Hopkins had 3 defenders. I mean, look at that.
Yeah.
It took them, I was listening to the audio from that. It took everyone a second. The crowd went wild, but until the refs gave the signal, see how happy there's Larry Fitzgerald and DeAndre Hopkins together. That was surreal. Put the Cardinals up over the Buffalo Bills 32-30 to win the game. What did you think about that?
I think one of the first things I thought is, wow, Bill O'Brien's an idiot. I mean,
Right. I saw
you
so many
gave
things
up-
on Twitter about that.
you gave up the best receiver in the NFL for David Johnson and a second-round pick. The best receiver in the NFL. And now Bill O'Brien's out of a job. The Cardinals are 6-3. They're doing better than I think I expected them to.
Me too.
Yeah. Bill O'Brien, you're a clown. And that's why you're out of the NFL right now. I'm sorry.
All right, switching leagues. NBA draft. I know you watched it. You have a lot of thoughts on this. Tell me your thoughts.
Well, the NBA draft is tonight,
Oh, sorry,
actually.
the-
No, you're good. I mean,
Preview the draft then.
it's really weird because there was no March Madness this year. You can't really get a good look at a lot of those prospects. There's a couple that I happen to really like. I like Anthony Edwards. He should be a number 1 pick tonight.
And he was from Georgia, correct?
He is from Georgia. Had a really decent season. 6'3", 225 pounds. He's just a really good player, and I think he should be number 1. LaMelo Ball's in there too. I don't really know what to make of LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball is a really hard player to scout. He shoots a lot. He kind of shoots like Westbrook, where it's super inconsistent, and sometimes it goes in, sometimes it's not. But he's 6'7". He's still growing apparently,
Wow.
so he can play kind of like a Ben Simmons role there if he continues to grow. Another person I like, Obi Toppin from Dayton. He could play the stretch 4. He's projected to go around 6th, but honestly, with this draft, we don't really know. We could see what happens here, and then finally, I'm very curious to see where James Wiseman goes, who went to Memphis for 3 games. There was a weird NCAA scandal, which wasn't really a scandal, but it should. I'm very interested to see where everyone's going to go, because we don't really have a good look at everybody because there was no NCAA tournament. A lot of people make draft assumptions based on
On
how
the
somebody plays
tournament,
in the NFL and the NBA draft.
In the March Madness
March
tournament.
Madness, yes,
Right.
yes.
Definitely a lot to look out for there. Quick little headline, Dustin Johnson did win the Masters last week. We kind of previewed that. Congrats to him. That was his first green jacket, 2nd career major championship. Pretty good run for him there in Augusta. When we come back, we're going to have Chris Becker from the Ocali to come over here and preview the Bedlam game. Stay with us. Nice.
Hi, I'm Will Joyce, the Mayor of Stillwater. As mayor, it's my responsibility to help develop plans for a variety of resident needs, including roads, emergency services, and utilities. Some of those services are paid for with federal money that the government distributes to states and communities based on Census Bureau data. This is your tax money coming back to our community, but if you or your household aren't counted, we lose nearly $1,200 per person to places like Texas, Kansas, and Arkansas. So help bring that money back to local communities by filling out the 2020 census. This year, it's easy to do. You'll receive a postcard in March 2020 with a unique code for your address. Using that code, simply go online, call, or request a paper copy of the census and fill it out. I want to make sure that you and your whole household are counted in the 2020 census. It's important not just to Stillwater, but to all of Payne County.
Welcome back to Behind the Line. We are joined by Chris Becker, Ocala football reporter. Chris, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. So before we preview Bedlam specifically, the Cowboys have been struggling with injuries the last 2 weeks with Tylen and Chuba. Do you know anything? Are they healthy? We had this bye week, and I know Coach Gundy was really excited to try and get them all healthy. What have you heard?
On Monday when we talked to Coach Gundy about it, he said we'd know more later in the week, and we don't talk to him again until after the game.
Right.
So he knows, but we don't. If the injury was as minor as they made it sound to Tylen last week, Tylen should be able to go, and I'm sure he wants to be back on the Bedlam field. He missed last year because of his torn ACL, so he wants to be there, and he'll play if he can. I think Chuba was just a little banged up at the end of the game, but he'll be fine. He should be fine. LD Brown was banged up too. There are injuries all over that field. Colby Harvell-Peel should be back.
Because he didn't play at all last week,
right?
Correct?
He was out all last week with a hamstring injury. Hopefully he's back. Trey Sterling's been banged up the last 3 weeks. There's injuries all across the board. Luckily this team's so deep that injuries hurt, but it doesn't knock the team out because they're so deep all across the board.
Well, hopefully the team is all healed up and ready for Saturday.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. I mean, when we look at OSU's defense, one of the big weaknesses that we saw in that Kansas State game was the running game. There's a couple of times where either Will Howard or one of K-State's running backs was able to just break through the middle pretty easily. And they were saying that they've been game planning this game like they were Kansas State. What do you think we're going to see differently with that Oklahoma State defense against the run?
Right. I think a lot of it's going to come down to Trace Ford and out of that Leo position, that rushing linebacker. I think you'll see him drop into coverage a couple more times, maybe play some contain, spy on Rattler. Rattler's a mobile guy just like Will Howard. They can sling it a little better than Will Howard can. It's going to be tough to stop somebody like that. I was talking to Lincoln Riley yesterday, and he was talking about Spencer Sanders, but it goes the same way for Spencer Rattler for OSU's defense stopping them. He's one of those guys that it's hard to game plan for just because he can do it all. He can throw, he can run, he can create plays, and even if you can have somebody, his sole job's to watch him and still fail because he's just that good. So I think Rattler's grown into a pretty solid quarterback the last couple weeks after being benched against Texas.
Right.
But I think it's going to be tough, and it's going to come down to the linebacker play and the play of the outside linebackers like Trace Ford and Eamon Ogbongbemiga and Malcolm.
You kind of touched on this, but this is Spencer Sanders' first Bedlam and Spencer Rattler's first Bedlam. What does our offense need to do to win against the Sooners defense? And Spencer Sanders and Rattler are both kind of a dual threat quarterback. So what are the similarities there? Just give me your opinion on that.
Yeah, it's going to come down to quarterback play. There's no ifs, ands, but we can talk about the offensive line injuries. We can talk about defensive secondary issues in OU. We can talk about offensive line issues outside of Creed Humphrey on OU. You can talk about a lot of problems on both these teams, but it's going to come down to quarterback play. Both quarterbacks have had their fair share of turnover problems this year. Both teams. Spencer Rattler was benched against Texas. His turnovers cost Oklahoma State the game from Spencer Sanders against Texas. So. This is going to be tough. It's going to come down to their play, and it's a rivalry game. There's going to be a lot of emotions, a lot of build-up from fans and teams alike, because a lot of these guys are from Oklahoma. Obviously, Rattler's from I think Arizona, and Spencer Sanders from Texas. But there's still that emotion there that goes into this, and it's gonna have to come down to them, and they're gonna have to make plays and give their team a chance.
I want to talk to you about Chuba real quick. The last couple of games against Texas and Kansas State, he had 25 carries and 72 yards against Texas, and then 6 carries and 31 yards against Kansas State. What is going on with him? I know he was hurt in that Kansas State game, but it feels like he's not doing as well. Is it because of the expectation for him, or is there something that are teams able to prepare for him a little better?
I think a little bit of it's the expectation. I think OSU fans were expecting, another season just like last year.
Right.
But those seasons don't come around very often. And I think a lot of it is the emergence of LD Brown. I think LD Brown deserves a lot of credit for this.
He's had a great season.
Right. He's had a remarkable season compared from last year where there were people who were thinking, like, this guy is just he's not the answer. We need another number 2 back behind Chuba. But, his season has made him split carries, kind of like what we see in the Browns with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. It's the same situation. You're 2 good running backs who, both deserve their fair share of carries. So you're going to get it. And, yeah, Chuba was banged up against a K-State team, and this offense just hasn't really been doing all that well either. Chuba's not doing well. Spencer hasn't been, elite like we thought. The only one who's really continued the numbers from last year, Tylen, and that's just because, he gets 20 carries. He gets 20 looks a game. So, this offense has to be better all around. Spencer has to play well. Chuba's got to, step up a little bit. And LD Brown just has to, just keep doing LD Brown.
Do what he's doing.
Yeah, do what he's been doing the first few games. Don't go back to last year's.
I think it'll be a good game. I'm excited to watch it. Hopefully we get the edge on this game for sure, and we want to get that Bedlam win. Thank you so much for joining us today, Chris. For Ian Nickel, I'm Alex Dusky. Thank you so much for tuning in to Behind the Line today. Be sure to tune in Saturday to our pregame show. You can watch on Suddenlink Channel 112, Apple TV, Amazon Fire Stick, and Roku. Have a great weekend, and go Pokes!